welcome back to The Tangent. Again, we have our friend Devin with us.
Hey, how's it going?
Our friend Tim.
How you doing?
Harrison, our producer. And myself, James. Today we're going to talk about gaming and how it's influenced us in this room.
Yes, sir.
So, first off, I started gaming with the Atari.
Yeah, so if you couldn't tell, James is most definitely the old man in the room. We got dinosaurs in the room, people.
Yes, but which Atari?
The one with the little stick. I forget which one that is. The
2600?
I think it's the 2600. Yeah.
I can't remember.
So, but I also played older systems like the original Sega, not the Genesis, the original Sega.
The Sega Master System?
Yeah,
Hell
and
yeah.
then I went from the Atari to the Genesis, and then I didn't even have a system for a long time until I picked up a PlayStation 1.
No, we had an NES in the house.
Well, yeah, we did have the NES, but I really didn't focus on the NES too much. There was a few games that I enjoyed playing.
Castlevania.
Oh yeah, Castlevania. I did play Zelda for a little bit, but that's just too much puzzle solving when you're that young.
Well,
What? Duck Hunt? I loved Duck Hunt. I was never any good at any of the Marios. I don't care which Mario it was. I loved playing Mario 3 because that was the one that was real fun to like piddle around and find the shortcuts through and cheat your way into the without having to do any of the levels.
Right.
I was never any good at them, but I knew how to get. I knew how to get from one to the end of the game with using nothing but shortcuts.
yeah, there you go. I mean,
Jumping up to the top of that one level and you run across and you drop down and you get that first flute.
yeah, it's got nothing on Impossible Mario that you can see right now on like YouTube.
God, some of the Mario Maker stuff.
Yeah, some of
those-
the Mario Maker crap is ridiculous. But
yes.
for me, the earliest systems that I remember playing on was the Sega Saturn. My mom had one. I remember playing Sonic on that when I was really, really young.
That was the original
I
system
remember-
that Lunar came out on.
Yeah.
I remember my mom didn't have any like memory sticks or anything or memory cards
Right.
for the Sega, but she had like a bunch of games. So like if I were to ever play on her Sega, I would have to try my best to beat the game in one sitting. And I remember I played Clockwork Knight for like 26 and a half hours just trying to beat that
Without stopping?
stopping. Yeah, because I couldn't.
Ooh.
Like, I remember one weekend, like, my parents went away. I was a little older by this point. Like, I had just, just for the novelty, I was, like, maybe 11, 12. I wanted to see if I can just beat the thing in one sitting. And, like, it was the only game that had, like, a super lengthy, interesting story that I had not already played through.
Wow.
So, Clockwork Knight was the first game I ever played through. I got all the way to the last battle. And then something happened to where like the old ass Sega Saturn screwed up, because you gotta think this is probably like 2005,
Right,
2006, so it's every bit
of... The thing
of
was
like
running for 26 hours.
yeah, the thing was running for 26
It
hours.
was,
It's every bit of like 20 years old at this point.
It was probably not made for that.
I think the very first game I played to completion, and again, this will age me, was Pitfall on the Atari.
Hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
I actually finished that game. And those games were not like they are now, where they had save points where you could continue from. You always, whenever you turn that game on, it started over from the beginning.
Right.
I think the first game I finished was with you when we got the Genesis. We played Streets of Rage. We beat Streets of Rage.
We did, and we did that in one sitting. We just kept playing over and over again and playing.
That was fun. I loved
One
that
game.
The Streets of Rage games were so good.
The one game from the Sega Genesis, I think that was totally underrated, but I enjoyed playing over and over again. Never could finish it. Never. I still to this day have not beaten the end of the game. Was the Superman Doomsday game.
Oh yeah, Death and Return of Superman.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That was great. I mean, it's a side-scrolling fighter.
It is the best Superman game I think that there's ever been.
Right. I mean, and anybody who knows comics knows the Death and Return of Superman. Like, Superman died from fighting Doomsday, and then when...
Spoiler alert.
Whatever. Dude, that was like 20 years ago, man. Come on.
I do find it a little weird that anytime anyone talks about the video game, Death and Return of Superman, they always talk about the Super Nintendo version. Everyone forgets that it was on Genesis too.
I didn't even know it was on the SNES. Truthfully,
I
because
didn't know that for a long time. It was just until like when I started looking up to it, because like you said, we never finished that game. We always got to like, what was it, the second to last level? And
or
then,
the last. I think I made it to the last level once, and I just couldn't get any further.
Right.
And imagine how difficult, like, if they made, like, a new Superman game, like, today, imagine how quickly you could probably beat that freaking game. If you had, like, the bounds of time that you had back then to pour into it, you could probably beat any game in like, a day.
I've gone back and played games that I remember being hard and them being a lot easier. That's just because we're older and we're better at video games, and we're better at spatial reasoning and hand dexterity. We're just better at these things now that we're older, and as a result, games that we remember being really, really hard are a lot easier. Like even like the old Ninja Gaiden games.
Oh my god!
Right? They're still hard, but they're not as hard as you might remember.
They're like
being.
pleasingly difficult still.
Yes.
And that's the one thing is when they
as hard as you need them to be.
when they remade the Ninja Gaiden game.
Yeah.
And they released it. I don't even remember what system it was on.
Xbox.
That was
Xbox.
ungodly hard.
Yes.
And they made it so kind of purposely to show that
Yeah.
New games can be that difficult. I mean,
But I would say that those are more of a fun hard as opposed to like the Dark Souls and Demon Souls games. I don't think those are fun hard.
Those are like,
And the thing is,
piss you
like
off
some
hard.
people do think that they're fun hard. Like they enjoy how difficult they are, and they enjoy getting killed over and over again, and having to go recover their stuff. And I can see that and I can get it, but it's just not for me. Like it needs to be like fair hard. And I never thought of the Dark Soul games as being fair hard. They were just sort of cheap hard to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from system to system growing up because when the new system came out, I was like, oh, that looks really cool. That looks really fun. But our older brother, you may not have known this, but he had the Sega CD.
I didn't know that, no.
So he had a Sega CD, and we had like that virtual. It was the shooting. It still had the light gun. So I love that. I used to sit when I ended up moving to California, and he was there. He was at my mom's house, our mom's house, because it's my older brother's mom too. But he had it, and I would sit there before I ended up finding a job. I would sit there while nobody was home, and I would just play the freaking light gun game. I love those old light gun games. Those were great, like Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley.
The thing that's like super cool, I have a friend that's super big with like first person shooter games and shit like that, and like 9 times out of 10 people will, like, from my generation, will pick up like Duck Hunt or something like that, or even like in an arcade or at a laundromat or something, they'll try and play those shooter games, and like it's hard because
Time Crisis, my favorite game.
they'll like
Yeah, Time Crisis 2 and Time Crisis 3 were amazing.
the aim on that is ridiculous, but I've actually seen that, like, honestly, all gaming is just getting used to however it's operating and the timing of it. Because, like, I saw him just walk into a random laundromat once with me. I was like 18, 19, and he just threw some quarters in and hit like everything.
Yeah, I remember there was a point in time where Time Crisis 2 and 3, I could breeze through the first half of those games at an arcade on 1 credit,
Right.
without even really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would like at that, like, about halfway through the game was when I actually started having to like concentrate and do stuff.
Right.
But up until then, it was just whatever, because I'd played them so many times, and I was used to the light guns and all that. But
And a lot of that though is patterning. Once you memorize the pattern, I mean, because those style of games were all patterns.
well, and
everything.
Time Crisis 1 and 2, 2 and 3. At least I don't know so much about 1 because I never really played 1, but you had the 2 players, and depending on which side you were playing on, you had a different pattern to memorize.
Right.
So I knew someone who owned a home version of Time Crisis 2.
Like in home
Yeah,
arcade.
in home like whole setup with the light guns and everything.
Oh, nice.
And they would play by themselves, so they memorized the entire game as player one. And when we would go to arcades, I would play player two. So player two is what I memorized. So if I went by myself, I would always pick the second slot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a difference.
That's the one. There is a difference because at certain points in the game, they actually split up.
They split up. They take different cover. Different bad guys will show up in different patterns and different sides. Yeah.
That's the mark of like a true gamer. I still have friends that I could tell that like they'll specifically play a game until they have the timing down for every last bit of that game. To where, like, specifically in fighting games, is ridiculous. You can tell when you're fighting somebody that
knows what they're doing.
That knows what the hell they're doing. That you really don't have a chance for. And I would say I'm probably at least better than average as far as a fighting game, like the Street Fighter and the Mortal Kombat and, Soul Calibur, all that crap.
I remember when Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection was around and going to our local tilt, and I accidentally beat the tar out of a casual. And because, I saw someone was playing the game, and my buddy Justin, who worked there, was watching them play, and he was really big into Tekken 5 DR. And he was way better than I was. But he was watching and he seemed to be intrigued. And I was just like, okay, so I'll go ahead and throw some quarters in and I'll go ahead and play this person. And I beat the snot out of them. And they was like, oh, okay. And they left. And Justin was like, what the hell did you do that for? And I was just like, oh, I thought they knew how to play. And he was just like, what? Didn't you look? And I was like, well, I mean, you were standing here. And he was like, well, that's just because she was pretty. And I was like,
that's Justin for you.
Right.
I remember I spent a lot of time in the tilt at the mall playing Marvel vs. Capcom for like hours and hours.
The tilt had the original Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Capcom vs. SNK.
They still have Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at tilt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that was a huge moneymaker for them.
It's still a huge moneymaker.
There's still a tilt around somewhere?
At Mid Rivers Mall.
Is it still open?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Last time I haven't been in probably like
I haven't been to Mid Rivers.
There were because I knew someone who worked there. I knew where they made all of their money, and where they made all of their money was skee ball. Like literally, that's where they made all their money.
That's where you can get the most tickets if you're good.
Well, right, but the thing is, like they had their skee ball set up, and eventually they got that shooting gallery set up too.
Yeah.
And that was actually the way where you could get the most tickets if you knew what you were doing. That shooting gallery, I stood there one day at that shooting gallery and made like 10,000 tickets or something. And me and Justin, we were gonna use, because he got like a weird ticket discount thing, and we got an iPod Touch by just having me stand there.
Back to our, gadget.
Right.
Yeah. already off on a tangent.
Which if I don't know if I said this during our little gadget discussion from a while ago. The iPod Touch was the first MP3 player that I got, and there was that one. I got it from Tilt by standing in front of a stupid shooting gallery machine and just abusing their ticket system.
This is pretty unrelated, but I remember one time I went to Six Flags with a bunch of buddies from high school, and there was like that one game where you gotta like stack the blocks as they're like sliding back and forth across the screen. And this man spent like 6 or 7 hours just playing this game, and like we would just keep going and riding rides, and like he was still there every time we came back around, and he never won like all day, but he just kept wasting his money. I'm like, bro, you could have bought an iPod Touch by this point.
Yeah, my buddy Justin, when they first got that thing, he was working on trying to get it, get it to give him stuff, because he was, he worked there and he wanted some of the systems that were in it. So he was trying to figure out all the nuances of it, because he was really good at a lot of those timing games.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a timing game that's in, I think it might still be there, where you have to like drop a ball and it'll go through a hole.
Yeah.
And if you can get it to go through the right holes, you get a certain amount of tickets, and they're all marked. And it has like the big jackpot one, which is for every person that played, the jackpot goes up by one. and he would just wait until the jackpot got stupid high, and he would just walk over to it, stick a quarter, and smack it, and get all the tickets.
Hells
He would just
yeah.
clear it himself.
Wow.
So he was really good at those timing games. So he was like, whatever, I can do stack up. So he starts doing the stack up, and he realizes, because he's very observant about these kinds of things, when you get up high enough, it will skip you by one block over if you
Every time.
not every time,
Well-
time. It does it. It's sort of like a slot machine where it's set to skip you every once in a while when you would otherwise land properly. So he did end up winning stack up, I think, once within the first couple of weeks, but it was like it took him a while because he was trying to figure out when and how it would skip him. And so during periods of time when he would have to hit the button early and get skipped over on top of the thing so he wouldn't fall off.
Well, you gotta think how many people are really gonna sit there though and like learn.
I mean, that was an advantage of working at Tilt, was he got to sit there and do it all day.
Well,
Yeah,
and the
all
thing
day.
is about those games is something I found out actually within the last couple of years is that those games have counters in them.
Yeah.
So it counts how many plays it has before it's ready to
Yeah.
give up a prize. So it has so many players have to play to win a smaller prize, but it'll then stack them if nobody's won even a smaller prize, it'll continue that count until it gets to a certain number, and then the large prize will be open. So even though like those key games, those ones where you have to line up the key and it goes through and twists and pushes down, those key games are literally set.
To only succeed every now and then.
Yeah. So no matter where you put it, you could be dead on. It will not give up the prize until it has enough plays, because the people who own those machines have to and need to make a certain amount of money. And the only reason why I know this is really weird is because I saw it on YouTube. There's a kid
I think
up in Michigan or Minnesota, up in one of the northern states, and he owns a bunch of these machines.
one of them their
And-
northern states.
He owns a bunch of these machines, and he goes around to his own machines and videotapes him winning these prizes. Now, he puts them back in the machine because it's his machine, but he just kind of shows that yes, they can be won, but here's some of the tricks to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just something he does.
I've seen guys do tricks with stack up and things, because stack up, the only time it starts skipping you is after you get past the first prize window.
Yeah.
So I've seen guys do workarounds with the game where if you pick prize at that first prize window, you can get everything on that row if you hold down a certain series of buttons. It'll just keep going. And he has YouTube videos of how to do it, and that he's showing him doing it, and he also videos of him getting kicked out of places for doing it.
Funny.
But I mean that's what you're gonna have to deal with.
Well,
'cause
we kind of did get off
On a tangent.
on
here.
subject matter here. We went off in
it's
arcade.
still technically video games.
Yeah, it still fits the
But
subject.
back into console gaming, I mean, truthfully, after the PlayStation 1, I did own a PS2 that technically wasn't mine, and it still isn't mine, but I still own it. I have an awesome younger brother who lived with me for a minute and had two of them and left me his old Gen 1.
Oh yeah.
And it's still sitting in the other room.
It's probably
Is it
still
really?
got,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
probably
we
still
pulled
got
it out.
X-Men Legends in there because
We-
I played it like 5-6 years ago probably.
We pulled it out and it was hooked up. I mean,
It still ran.
Abby,
I actually forgot what I did with that thing. So
yeah, Abby at one point was playing Final Fantasy VII on it,
And Kingdom Hearts.
and the Kingdom Hearts games on there. But since Kingdom Hearts got re-released on the PS4 in the remaster, so you can get play the first 4 games and then had 2 videos in that one
Yeah,
set.
they got it separated between there's the edition that I have has 1 and 2, and then the little Game Boy Advanced and Nintendo DS styled card game and other
Yeah.
RPG style games So I think it comes with like 6 or 7 versions of Kingdom Hearts, but then there's also like that's like 1.2 or some
Yeah,
crap. There's another one that's got like a couple extra ones, but like
Yeah, because I remember because I was talking to somebody when I purchased it because it was on sale one time for her. It had, I think they said 4 playable games and 2 videos of the other 2 games. So basically what it was is you could see all 6 games that were built for it or play them before the new Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, so that way you could kind of catch up on the story.
Yeah, and I mean,
so it had them all on there, like
I-
the DS games that were released for it, and then I think the PlayStation, the PSP had a game version
like
of
that.
it. But yeah, you were able to play 4 versions, and then 2 of the games were not in playable form, but they basically just showed all the video clips of
yeah, that's right.
of
that's right.
the story, so you can get the story in.
And honestly, I bought that with the intention of catching up before.
And you still never played 3.
I still have not played 3.
Okay.
Sue
So before we get too far
Future
into this,
moderny.
I'd like to rewind a little bit and mention. So James, you're into the sports games and things.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I think I'm the only one in this room that is.
I'm not sure if you're into sports games or not, but I do know.
I'm into fake sports games.
I do know what you are into, and that's Pokemon.
Hells
So
yeah.
if I go back to when I got the Genesis, I got the Game Boy probably around the same time, if I recall.
Did you have? Are you talking about when you got the Game Boy Color or
No,
the original?
Game Boy, the original.
Because you
gray
still have
brick.
the brick,
big-
don't
I
you?
still have the
brick.
brick sitting around somewhere.
Hells yeah, that's what's up.
And
That's
that's
a
what
rarity.
I played Pokemon on, was that gray brick. When Pokemon first came out. And I know I don't know any other game right now that could entice me to play, but I still play Pokemon.
You can, for me, and I'm sure this is the same for pretty much anybody who plays Pokemon, and I can even give an example. I just played through Sword and Shield. It came out last month.
Yeah.
Because it's now December,
Yeah, I think
something
so.
like that.
Yeah, it's December now.
But anyways, I played through Sword and Shield at my buddy's house. I hooked up my Switch to his TV so he could kind of just watch me while I messed around. But then I had him start playing Pokemon Y on my DS, and like he's not like anybody that ever played through any of the Pokemon games. He's played them, but not played through them. He's never beaten any of the games, never really like been that Pokemon gamer. But like he's like, I cannot put this down.
Yeah.
And every game, it doesn't matter if it's a game you've played already or a game you haven't played. If you make the decision to go out there and catch them all, whether you do or don't catch them all, you're not gonna want to stop trying to catch them all.
Yeah, because I was playing Sword and Shield. I got both. I finished Sword, and I'm basically down to just post-game stuff.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd go ahead and pick up Shield, get through it, figure out which one I was going to use as my sort of bank.
Your bank.
My bank for competitive breeding and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Every
and
time.
Then the other one I would just restart over and over again, get starters and legendaries and play around,
find out
have
what
fun.
Pokemon are best to use for your bank game.
Right.
Well,
So that I started Shield and I was like, okay, I just need to get through this game, and so now that I'm several hours into this and I've caught everything I've come across, like I don't mean to. I just see things. And I'm just like,
the
yeah, I'll go ahead
Sword
and
and
get it.
Shield specifically is like the first game in a while where even though there's not very many like new Pokemon per se, because like in the later generations they started to like just be like, we'll just throw all these like pretty decent Pokemon that you
Right.
already know about in here. That way we don't have to be creative. And sorry, I'm totally shitting on Game Freak and Pokemon right now, but like, that way we don't have to make a bunch
Yeah,
of
but the
weird
thing is,
Pokemon that
it's-
people are gonna make fun of
it's
because
difficult.
it's like a glob of slime. It's like, who cares? All right, it's a Pokemon. Just enjoy.
Gen 1 had globs of
Yeah.
slime. They're called Grimer and Muck.
magnets and
Right.
and Pokeballs that were not Pokeballs that explode when you touch them.
And then literally just birds.
And literally
Which is-
just birds.
literally
And we're
just
trying to act
birds.
like this isn't just a pigeon. It's just called Pidgey.
Right.
But
And then
anyway,
Spearow is just, it's,
X and
Right.
or not X and Y. Sorry, Sword and Shield. I'm gonna say X and Y a lot when I talk about Sword and Shield because for me, X and Y was another one of the games, you know, that came out and it was like it was great. It, for some reason, there was just something about the game that was amazing all the way through, and that's how Sword and Shield was. I've only played Sword, but I couldn't really put it down until I had cleared the gym challenge and won. Like I have done 0 post game, but I beat the game like last weekend. And
Yeah.
it just every time you run into a new Pokemon, even if it's something you've seen before in
I think
previous
it's like,
games,
I started,
I was like, damn, I want to catch that, and it made it so much fun throughout the entire game of just. Usually I'm the kind of guy that's just like, forget the Pokemon. I'm not going to use that, so like I'm not going to catch it. But this time I was like, no, I'm catching
well,
literally everything.
for all the new gens, I always try and catch all the new stuff at least.
yeah.
Because I already have my living deck sitting in Pokemon Bank.
Mhm.
So, you know, I can just transfer up. But now with the new games, you're not going to be able to do that so much because you have to transfer everything to home first, and the only things you can transfer from home into the new games is supposedly what's in it. So I don't know how true that is, and we won't know how true that is until home comes out.
They specifically didn't do anything.
Yeah, but
national decks.
regardless of whether or not everything's going to be able to transfer over, everything if it came out already, I have it, so I'm not so worried about those unless I want them to hang around or go and do like the battle tower or something like that.
Well, like one of the coolest features of the game, and it's something that's not like really of giant consequence or anything, but they have Pokejobs,
Yes.
and I thought that was neat. So like for me, I was like, oh, here's another water Pokemon. I'll just catch that so I can send it on Pokejobs. It can make me money. It'll like me a little bit more. I didn't even have to do anything other than send that person
From what I've
out.
heard from the Pokejobs is that's one of the easier ways to EV train.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked into Pokejobs because it's a new thing that I completely forgot was in the game until someone told me to look into it like Friday, so 2 days ago.
Yeah.
They were just like, yeah, that's a great way to EV train. If you send someone out, you can just EV train an entire stat. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, they have specific
I didn't-
jobs
I didn't know
that are EV
Like
trainers.
I hadn't looked at it at all. I remember the first time playing through Sword, there was like, "Would you like to hear about Pokejobs?" And I was like, "No, I'd like to go do the first gym, please."
There is a lot, and with as enjoyable as the game is, with all its new features, there's a lot of like, hey, let me talk to you, and like just freaking drown you in boring
drown
words,
you in text.
in text, and crap for like 40 minutes before you do like. Between the wild area and just the fact that every time you get to a new town, you gotta take a freaking nap in the hotel with your best buddy Hop. Like, what? Why do I have to do that? Back in my day, you should just be able to walk through the town, finish the crap, and get out of there without anybody like, hey, let's look at this statue.
And
Like,
the only text
you gotta go to the
would
hotel.
get is the text that you had to skip over so you could actually fight the gym leader, and the text that you would get when your rival music pops up and your rival comes sauntering out of the nowhere and challenging you to a very inconvenient battle.
Yes. But the thing is like in the new games, it's never an inconvenient time to battle. Expect like
Never.
Like I said,
Like,
between
and it's weird because in Sword and Shield they even ask you, it's like, hey, are you ready for this battle?
yeah.
And
What?
it's like, you just healed all my Pokemon. Yeah, I'm ready for the battle.
Yeah, I think I'm good. Not only did you just heal my Pokemon, I'm about to wipe the floor with yours, and then you're gonna heal my Pokemon again.
Yeah.
Like they even need it. Yeah.
So,
Well,
there's a thing going around on YouTube, the Pokemon challenge videos, and I saw one. It was like the no Pokemon Center, And they were like, seriously, no Pokemon Center. We're not allowed to walk in there unless the game forces us to.
No kidding.
Right? So
I like that.
Like no PC boxes, no healing, no nothing. Just and he did the whole challenge. It worked out really well.
You know why? Because Hop fucking bumps into him every town. He's like, "Hey,
but
buddy, you doing all right?"
It was an older game. It was like Crystal.
Oh, okay,
Right.
That's a challenge.
Right.
That is a challenge.
And he gets to a certain point and he's like, and this is what makes the challenge possible. And he finds he gets the move deleter. And he's just like, and he'll just delete the HM move that's on a Pokemon and then reteach them the HM move. He just has infinite PP.
Impressive. I like that. That's a nice little loop. I love doing stuff like that, and we'll try not to make this too much of a tangent because we want this to be a little bit more broad than just two freaking nerds sitting here talking about Pokemon all day.
This is also the reason why I wanted to get into it early, because that way at least we'll have time later for something.
We will come back to this subject, and
Most
we will be
definitely.
able to do a whole cast
Especially
of
since
nothing but Pokemon, and we're going to include the card game, the video games, everything.
the anime,
Pokemon,
the manga, even
everything.
But
So
competitive
a
VGC
huge
versus
reason-
Smogon and
a huge reason and a huge talking point that I'll have when we eventually do that is probably just the fact that, like, I will randomly go back and replay, like, ROMs on my phone of, like, 1st and 3rd gen games and
Yeah.
2nd gen, but, like, and just give myself, like, a random, like, task to where, like, I have to do this while I'm playing the game instead of, like, you know, the typical run through where you just pick
Yeah.
whatever you want. Like, I'll go through, like, Ruby and have an only water team or an only fire team or an only whatever team, and then figure out how to make all that happen without getting bored and breaking the
But
game.
Pokemon is a good one. I mean, granted, yeah, I haven't said a whole lot. I'm not into Pokemon. I tried to play the game. I never could. You know, I've started Red and Blue, or Green, depending on which version
Well,
you're
if
talking
you're playing
about.
green, it's going to be Japanese.
Yeah.
And if you're playing green, then it is a very buggy game.
A super
uh,
buggy.
And
I tried-
Red and Blue were not short on bugs.
I tried playing both of those on multiple occasions. It's just, I guess when I started, it was okay. I did okay playing it, but as I got older, I don't have the attention span for that anymore. I sat and played all of Final Fantasy VII twice through, and Final Fantasy VII is 3 discs long on the PS1.
Yeah.
I don't have that attention span really anymore. I mean, I'll play some sports games, get 1 or 2 games in, I'll get bored and turn something else on. But, I mean, I haven't talked much because I never really got into Pokemon like they did. But, talking about it here is good because it's what really got you guys
Oh. Yeah.
into gaming in a
Yeah,
different sense.
It's the only gaming thing I still do.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause I used to be like really into like things like Mass Effect and the Arkham games and things like that, and I don't play any of it anymore. But I
mean,
still play Pokemon.
Put it this way. I just got Sword and Shield on my Switch. You know the reason why I have a Switch is because last year when Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu came out, I went and bought a Switch just so I can play Pokemon.
Yeah, same here.
And I've gathered and collected other games in the last year.
I haven't.
Maybe I have Smash Bros Ultimate because my ex-girlfriend got it for me on my birthday or something like that. I don't know. I think it may be anniversary. I don't know. But I played it like 2 or 3 times, and like that's only a game that I'll probably play when I have somebody else
I keep getting
over.
told to play Breath of the Wild, and
Oh, yes.
all I really have to say to people is, if someone got me Breath of the Wild, it would sit in the cellophane for probably at least 3 or 4 years
Even when
before I even got around to thinking about playing it.
A lot of the time,
Wild's
even
a time consumer. I mean, it's one of those ones that you really got to sit and spend time on. If you're not going to sit and spend time on it, it's kind of a pointless game.
a lot of
And
the
it's worth-
time
and
I don't get
Pokemon
myself.
for me is a time-consuming game because I'm going to sit there and I'm going to breed up IVs. I'm going to do EV training. I'm going to set up
Right.
competitive teams. I'm going to section off my box
But it's-
so that each one has a specific thing that I'm
For
looking
me,
for, so I can
I've
go find
always-
everything when I need it. And
But again,
I've always-
it's about interest. It's are you
Yeah.
interested in it? And if you're not interested in the Zelda games, which I really don't have much interest in, I love the lore of what Zelda is and the Adventures of Link and all
Yeah.
those. I did play Zelda when it first came out. I played Adventures of Link, which was one of the worst Zelda games ever created, but I played it and beat it. But it's all in what you're interested in. Your interest your interest in gaming is Pokemon.
Yeah, but
So you're willing to spend the time and get it in
I
there.
will say, if they made a new Metroid game and put it out on the Switch, I'd buy it and play it.
I've heard
Because
rumors
Metroid is my
It's
thing.
not a rumor.
they are making a new. They are okay. So we just got
Because
Harrison.
they've only had
2 cents.
They've only
That's
had
right.
a trademark for a new Metroid game title for the past like 15 years that they haven't bothered using.
They announced it last year that they're making Prime 4.
I think I heard.
Okay, so I said a Metroid game. I
That
don't-
is a Metroid game.
I don't consider the Prime games to be part of Metroid because it's a completely different style. It's a completely different kind of game. I like the Prime games, but not for the same reason that I like traditional Metroid games.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't play a new Prime game.
Okay.
But like when they re-released Metroid 2, that I might consider playing. They did a fan version of remake of Metroid 2. I have that on my computer, but I don't have a convenient way to set up a controller to it at the moment, so I haven't played it yet. But those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about, like the old side-scrolling style Metroid games. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, and Metroid wasn't really even just a side scroller. It was more. I guess it's considered a side scroller, but it was up and down and side to side. And it was very puzzle based.
Yeah, it was very, very exploratory.
Yeah, and that was one of the first like exploring style games outside of Zelda there was. I mean, the original Zelda was a top view. You know,
And what's funny is
you had to go to the same place like 6 times just to get the stuff you needed. Because
It's not unlike Pokemon.
Yeah.
The original
But
Zelda.
one of my favorite Metroid games is the one that's the least exploratory, and it's Fusion. So they completely cut out an entire piece of what makes Metroid Metroid. It was one of my favorite Metroid games because it was just fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all about interest when it comes to games anymore. And truthfully, I used to have an interest in a lot of RPG styles. I mean, I played the Final Fantasy games. I played some of, what is the name of that game? Xenogears.
Yeah, the Xenosaga and Xenogears.
Yeah, it was Xenogears for the PlayStation 1. Sam played that more than I played it, but some of those old RPGs, even the old, like, MMO styles, so we'll go into PC gaming a little bit. I don't know.
We don't
couple
really
of us-
have the
couple of us
expertise to talk in depth about it. But
I
it's
know
not
enough
like we
about-
don't know anything.
I know enough about PC gaming because there was a point in my life where I really didn't have an upgraded console and I did everything on my PC.
Yeah, the
So
only thing
playing-
I could contribute to PC gaming is RTSs, real time strategies, because
I loved
I was
RTSs.
really into StarCraft.
I was into
Oh,
Command and
yeah.
Conquer. I did Command and Conquer a lot. Like
I also did Age of Empires, but
I did Command and Conquer Red Alert 2 forever. Even Red Alert 3 was out, I'd still play Command and Conquer Red Alert 2 over 3. But Command and Conquer's, StarCraft, Warcraft, those RTSs were what started me into PC gaming. But then I also did stuff like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. And then I started some stuff in EverQuest, which is one of the first MMORPGs created. And then I played WoW. I played WoW for a long time. World of Warcraft, for those who don't know what WoW stands
Yeah.
for.
on Diablo, real
most
quick,
people
I
should
never
do
got
that.
into Diablo because when Diablo and Diablo 2 were out and big, that was when I was getting into RPG games, like Japanese style RPG games, and I discovered things like the Final Fantasies and Lunar, which became my favorite RPG, Lunar and Lunar 2.
Yeah.
And I was always sitting around going, I could try and play Diablo and Diablo 2, or I could go and play some Lunar.
I mean, I went out after the 64 came out and picked up an SNES just to play some of the Final Fantasy games that were put on the SNES.
And those are really good games.
I mean, they're very pixelated, they're very blah, but I mean, truthfully, the game and story.
Graphically, they're not good,
Well,
but
story-wise, they were amazing.
I
Oh.
think if we're talking about influential video games for us, I'm sure it's probably the same for you. Maybe not as much for me, but like, I couldn't not mention the N64 as being just a huge console. That was the first console that I played.
The N64
super
was
regularly.
a console I played a lot,
Yeah.
and everyone still remembers fondly. But I can't go back and play it just because everything that was big
Different
and awesome was it was kind of, some of it's a lot of kind of gimmicky when you go back to it now.
Well, it's Nintendo.
Right.
That's what they
Every-
are.
That's how they've
everything Nintendo
survived.
puts
That's how
out
they
is
make their
kind of
money.
gimmicky, so it ages itself pretty badly. But
Yeah.
when I go back and try and play N64 games, I don't enjoy a lot of them.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. See, I never really owned my own N64. I went from the Sega Genesis to the PlayStation. I ran a completely different route. As much as I like Nintendo, even to this day, I'd still rather have a PlayStation or an Xbox over a Nintendo. I mean,
If it wasn't for Pokemon, I'd be 100% on
you
there
know,
with
the Switch
you
is
know?
there, and I like
if
the
it
Switch,
wasn't
and I
for
like the
Pokemon,
concept.
I wouldn't own a current system at all.
Yeah,
If
I
it
like the
wasn't for
concept of
Pokemon,
the
I wouldn't
Switch.
have a Nintendo system.
I do
that's
love the
for sure.
concept and where they went with the Switch. And if you watch Nintendo's evolution, they went from the Wii to the Wii U to the Switch. And if you watch that, it literally goes from the Wii, which is interactive with the controls,
Mhm.
to the Wii U, which actually had a tablet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is the first, traveling screen that you could do, but the tablet was stuck to the house because it needed to be connected to the Wii U. And then they did the Switch, which is its own system.
Yeah.
And now
it's
the
just
innovation
the
of
best both worlds.
what they've done is absolutely amazing because they've taken gaming to being stuck at home on your screen to being able to take a game that you enjoy on the road and play it. Like,
I will say one thing, especially when it comes to Pokemon. Playing on the DS and the 3DS and all that for so many years that we did playing Pokemon, and then going to the Switch, in terms of graphics, it's very, very good
Oh my
on
god.
the Switch. But in terms of gameplay, there are so many things that I'm so used to going down to the touchscreen to be able to do quickly and easily, that now we
Gotcha.
need to run through
Yeah.
buttons and menus and
I always,
things.
yeah.
They've made so many like shortcuts in the new games on the Switch
there are
to try and
shortcuts.
make up for that,
Yeah.
but it's not the same. You're very true, in stating that it's freaking. It's a whole lot of difference. We got very used to this.
Yeah,
To the DS.
I find myself missing the touchscreen a lot, but honestly, it's something I could probably get used to doing again. And honestly, I noticed it first when I was playing Let's Go.
Mm-hmm.
So playing Let's Go, and they hadn't finished off a lot of the UI. It was very, it almost felt like a beta.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it,
Very enjoyable.
it technically
It
is.
was a very enjoyable beta. Yeah.
It technically was a beta. They released it to kind of put their feelers out to see whether they could build a game for Pokemon
On the Switch.
on the Switch
Yeah.
and if it would sell. And
And
with
as
the
a
sales
result-
they had with Let's Go,
as
yeah,
a result
definitely.
of a lot of things, they had to go back to and kick the touchscreen out and do all this and that. It felt a lot like you were playing a very updated Gen 1 game, which is what it was. It was an updated Gen 1
100%.
game.
It was
It-
yellow.
they cut out a bunch of stuff. They cut out held items. They there's no more touchscreens, no more held items, there's no more abilities.
They added in a
Um,
super easy way to grind up a
They-
beastly Pokemon.
They cut out
Yeah.
a lot of moves.
And they
so
added-
a lot of the modern moves that you would think of to make things give you more
Well-
move coverage.
Well, they made it a lot based off of Pokemon Go.
yeah, I was
and
about to
Let's
say.
Go. I mean, That was kind of
Yeah.
the idea.
Yeah, they integrated the catch features and seeing the Pokemon
And
on the
the-
screen.
That was what
but-
made it more fun for me playing through Sword and Shield to try and catch the Pokemon. I was kind of still in the whole Let's Go mode
Yeah.
because in Let's Go you gotta catch pretty much everything you see, especially if you got a catch streak of a certain Pokemon going.
Yeah.
Just keep catching that Pokemon and you'll have like the strongest of that Pokemon you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And they added the feature of connecting the Pokemon Go with the Let's Go.
Yeah.
And you could transfer some of the Pokemon that you have in your Pokemon Go into Let's Go and have it.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Could you do the other way?
I don't
I don't
honestly
think it
No,
went the other
I don't
way.
think
It
so.
would only go into
Yeah.
That
into
was-
Let's Go.
the
But
thing
Let's Go got you the Meltan boxes, so you
Yeah.
So
you
yeah,
can get
and
it in both games.
the thing is that once it left your Pokemon Go, you didn't have it in your Pokemon Go anymore. So you had to decide which Pokemon you were gonna send into your Let's
Yeah.
Go.
So
Yeah,
basically the only things that I sent over were trade evolves,
And you
and which I ran into some good luck on that because we have a local park that I go play Go in, and it went from being an Abra nest, so I could grind up a bunch of Alakazams and send them over into Let's Go, to being a Machop nest, so I ground up a bunch of Machamps and sent some over into Let's Go, and
Right.
and I was still able to have these powerful Pokemon in both games because I was able to get so many candy.
So many, right.
yeah.
But again, we got back into Pokemon again.
Yeah.
Um,
I was kind of afraid
so-
that tangent was gonna happen again.
We've talked about a lot of older games
Specifically Nintendo.
on this episode. We will do a quick
segue here.
well, we're gonna do a quick, recommendations. If people like to play older games, what's one of the games you guys recommend? We'll do our recommendations, and then we're going to actually split this for the first time into 2 episodes. We are going to run a second episode of maybe
More
we'll
so
talk
the
more modern,
more
and
modern
the influences of some of the new modern games. So we'll start with Devin with his recommendation of an older game.
Well, it would probably be too obvious to say something Pokemon wise, because obviously, if you're not playing Pokemon, then what are you doing with your life? But I would actually say, somehow, some way, get you in a Sega Saturn with no data card and just try and sit through and play Clockwork Knight like I did to prove that you're a real G.
Okay. So my recommendation would be if you do go get that Sega Saturn or any of the other systems that can play one of the Lunar games, Sega Saturn, Sega CD, PlayStation 1. There's a version of it on the PSP, and there's even a Game Boy Advanced version of the first Lunar game. There's a myriad of ways to play Lunar. They're all very different. It's the same basic story, but they're all fun. Find one, play it. They're all great.
I mean, and for me, really, recommendation-wise, I've played a lot of older games, and there's one game that is so off the wall, but it got me into, like, the adventure shooting style games with Siphon Filter. We didn't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it at all on the podcast today, but it's a game that when I bought it, I had no idea what I was getting into. I loved Metal Gear Solid, but I picked up Siphon Filter because somebody said it's a lot close to it, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was on the PlayStation 1. If you can play the original Siphon Filter, I would at least run through it if you liked Metal Gear Solid. It was a pretty good adventure shooter. Harrison, you have any recommendations for a game? You didn't talk much today.
Older
You
game.
can't go wrong with Tetris.
Absolutely right.
Actually, yeah.
I could get lost playing
I
Tetris.
played a
for
lot of
hours.
Tetris
Well-
on my original brick Game Boy. So
And
yeah.
I still
truthfully,
play it.
on the new Switch, they have that Tetris Battle game. I don't know if
And-
that's
and
what
I-
it's
I
called, but
I
love
heard the guy
Tetris 99.
I heard the guy who invented Tetris finally won his lawsuit against the Russian government, so he actually got some money.
Hells yeah, maybe he can.
So,
invent
with that
something
said,
else.
we're going to go ahead and end this episode. And we'll talk more about gaming in the next episode.